another day, another step we take towards completing Project 2025.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the administration. They're taking away a lot.
Yeah, and I think there's even like some online trackers you can find that show like the percentage that they've completed Project 2025 in certain areas. But today I want to start off talking about a very specific example.
Okay.
And this actually isn't being done by the Trump administration. And I think the Trump administration will stay far away from whatever this thing is.
Okay. Is it like political suicide? Something so deeply
it's just
popular?
weird, dude.
Okay.
It's just some weird shit. What I'm talking about is Utah Senator Mike Lee, a Republican, of course, introduced a bill that would federally ban pornography.
Oh, buddy.
It adjusts the obscenity laws, like the wording for obscenity laws, basically to just make it so like any sexual act that's posted on the internet, whether it's like intentionally sexual or not, it would be like federally illegal to like, you know, put up on the internet and distribute.
Yeah. Serious analysis, they're going to use this to make it so gay people can't kiss on the internet.
100%. Yep.
Because other side of the analysis, they're coming for the gooners.
This bill is like framed as protecting children. Like explicitly. Explicitly, it's framed as protecting children. But I don't think there's any chance that this actually passes.
No.
But given the fact that it's a Republican senator that introduced it, my question is, Ted Cruz, you gonna let them do this to you? You really gonna just sit down and take this one, man?
I'm saying.
That's crazy.
I'm saying, no, they're coming for the incels.
Yeah,
they're coming for the incels. They're coming for the gooners. That's a significant portion of their base at this moment. All the Gen Z men that went and voted Republican this election, addicted to pornography, let me tell you.
It's like, read the room, dog. Like we got more things going on. Even as a Republican, like you guys are trying to cut Medicaid right now.
Yeah.
This dude's on the Senate floor talking about porn.
The courts are coming after you guys. The courts, the radical activist judges are doing lawfare against you. And you're talking about porn in Congress? Not the first time. We've talked about cock in Congress.
Many times, many such cases, unfortunately.
Maybe one of the craziest.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the goal is here. Because I know bro doesn't think it's actually going to pass. I think Trump would see this and get weirded out. Yeah. Like, personally, I think he'd be like, I'm not going to talk about that.
We're going to primary you.
Yeah, exactly. But I just thought, little interesting tidbit, especially because, like, if this were enacted and it became, like, illegal to distribute or even, like, watch it, every Republican in Congress is going to jail.
Benny Johnson would never be able to post a video again.
Oh my God, Mike Johnson would be in solitary confinement. Are you kidding? His son tracks that shit.
As soon as his son watches a video, he gets a picture of that on his phone.
It's over, dog.
Complicit. There you go. No more Benny Johnson videos because that's all soft core. No more of any of these other like MAGA grifters. Maybe, you know what? Silver linings.
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. It is May 15th. That's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday. Thursday thought leaders gathering for the meeting.
That's right, brother. We're here on a Thursday. We're here bringing you the news. This week, we have a whole lot to talk about. We finally got the details of the Republican budget bill. We got to talk about David Hogg and his quest to destroy the Democratic Party as we know it.
And we got to talk about the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
We love the institution of the Supreme Court here. And regular courts, federal courts.
Supreme Court specifically on the issue of immigration. So you can hope for a banger when it comes to immigration. But before we get into all that, of course, I'll remind you to become a patron.
Become a patron, maybe even follow us on our other socials.
That's right. It's really important to do that. Patreon.com/headintheofficepod. You can get early access to all of our content. You can join the Patreon postcard list. Yes. That's the Hit OPP postcard program.
They're in the mail.
They're in the mail.
They're in the mail right now.
So if you want to get on board for the next postcard that we'll be sending out, you'll have to join the Patreon and sign up on the list.
You'll have to wait and see what it is when you get it in the mail. You have to get that little surprise. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, you can follow us on social media. It's all down there in the description. And another great way, long enduring way to support the show is to give us a 5-star review on Apple. We'll read it here on the show.
Yes, we've got 3 here this week.
Yeah, you want to take this first one here?
I'll take this first one. Midwest white boys Up a Million by Tud, Master of Audits. I'd like to start off my review by, of course, saying that I condemn all political violence, but I gotta hand it to these boys. Current political forces have indeed been flooding the zone and making it near impossible to keep your head on straight. So finding Hiddo has been a huge help in the search for proper information. Hopping on the Patreon train was the right decision. I co-sign that one. And I am happy to have the news delivered with charm while I work. Hype for the Hiddo Renaissance and can't wait to see where y'all take this. Me too.
That's right.
Me too, quite frankly.
Thank you so much for that review. This next one from Arm Hammy 1. Number one Nobel Prize winning geopolitical and harbor watching podcast.
Hell yeah.
To start, I condemn Hamas as well as all forms of political violence. I also condemn bad things because they're bad. And I condone good things because they're good. As a Wednesday weenie, I have now been promoted to a Friday freeloader due to the new recording schedule. So off to set this trade deficit, I am writing this glazing review, as well as imposing a 145% tariff on myself for every hour of audio that I listen to. That's how you know.
Speaking of Wednesday weenies, I can't remember. I wish I would have remembered the person who said this, who planted this thought in my head. It was either on the Patreon or in a YouTube comment, called it Wednesday Welfare. Oh, that's money.
About to be Wednesday work requirements, brother.
That's but hell yeah, brother. This last review from
I wasn't done yet. There's a little bit left. There's a bit left. As a West Coast white boy in a safe suburban democratic beach town, I applaud these Midwest white boys for helping open my eyes to the geopolitics of Michigan. The geopolitics of Michigan.
That's West Coast, we just got endorsed by Bicoastal Elite.
Their banter and lively discussion on current events helps digest an entire week's worth of news cycle in just under 2 hours. Been listening to them while I'm at the gym, and it feels as though I have the boys chatting next to me while I hit my sets. Hopefully, I can land a job in tech. I can then afford y'all. I can then afford to support y'all and become a Sunday supremist. Not Sunday anymore, but
you can get the Monday mandate. You could become a thought leader. It's basically like this is like the G7 conference, but if it was cool.
If I were to interpret the spirit of the review,
precisely,
you're gonna join the Monday mandate.
If I would do an adaptation, some would say.
Yep.
This next review by FNAF Fan 69. Here to bring the truth to the people. Thank you to Head in the Office for continuing to bring real news to the people, all while lightening the mood during this insane time. Keep up the good work. And boy, is it an insane time right now. Excellent. I was sitting here writing out my little notes for this episode, not even this week, for this half of the week.
That's right.
Thinking, I don't know how we used to condense this all into a 2-hour episode.
I think maybe we just like missed stuff.
I think we must have missed hella. And I know for a fact we did miss stuff, but that shit's crazy. There's so much that happens all the time.
But that's we're here for 2 episodes a week. This is the Thursday ep, and we actually have quite a bit to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
But before we do that, I will announce real quickly. If you're watching video, you can see it right behind me. On the bookshelf is our second art contest winner. Congratulations to Ray. You are now immortalized in the studio forever.
Yes.
We got your artwork up here. Says, if you can't see it, if you're listening on video, says I condemn political violence, and it's a little flower in the middle.
True Hiddoism.
So we got both of our art contest winners immortalized in the studio forever. Congratulations to you two. And thanks again for everyone who participated.
Yes.
And glory to Hiddo.
Glory to Hiddo. Many more years.
Long live the Hiddo.
Long live the Hiddo. Precisely.
Anyways, it's time to get into the news here because in his first 100 days, Trump made less legislative progress than any president since we've started tracking progress by the 100-day marker.
What a beautiful stat.
I think I read it was 5 bills so far.
And one of those was the Lake and Riley Act, and yes. I think another one was just a stopgap funding.
Somewhere in there they named a post office, I'm sure.
Beautiful.
But yeah, it's been 5 bills so far. And I will remind you that FDR did the first 100 days thing, not just through his executive orders, although I think he still has the record for all-time executive orders, but he passed a ton of fucking legislation.
Yeah.
That was the goal that FDR had because, legislation can do a lot of stuff, a lot more than executive orders can do.
A lot more power behind that one, a lot more weight.
And so Trump hasn't had any real major legislative victory just yet, but Republicans are racing to give him a W on this budget bill that we've been talking about for the past few weeks, but we finally got the full details.
We've
got
been
the text.
Eagerly awaiting these details.
That's
and
right.
I don't know how to describe it.
It's evil.
It's evil. Exactly.
Straight up evil. It's a malicious bill.
It's evil. I want to say I'm disappointed because I don't like it, but I'm not disappointed. This is actually exactly what I was expecting.
Oh yeah. It's actually kind of worse. I thought for a moment there, we reported on Monday or last week or something that there were some Republicans that were like, I can't vote for Medicaid cuts.
Yes.
So I thought maybe they won't put it in. Maybe they won't go as far. They put everything in there that they want.
Every single thing in here. It's actually kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's really bad. But let's get into it here. Broadly, this bill consists of somewhere between $3.7 to $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, and importantly, a preservation of the 2017 tax cuts that Trump did in his first term, and a whole bunch more.
$4.5 trillion in tax cuts is insane.
Yeah.
And just a little spoiler alert, that's not for us, or at least most of it isn't for people, really like any of them who has the class interest to be watching this podcast. You know what I'm saying? But there are a couple things in here that are good to go over, including the tax cuts were a couple of measures to make good on Trump's campaign promises. The first, we have no tax on tips is in the bill. And the way that this is going to be implemented is workers who work jobs that have, quote, traditionally and customarily accepted tips as of 2024 will no longer have to pay federal income tax on tipped wages. You're still going to have to pay payroll taxes like Medicare and Social Security, though. They mentioned if this does pass, Scott Besson is going to make an actual list of every single job that will qualify as being a tipped worker. So that's interesting. They might be cracking down on flipping the iPad.
I think there's still going to be wicked loopholes in here.
Absolutely.
And for people that do live off of a tipped wage, you might be losing your health care and Medicaid anyway. So
true.
It might not matter.
And that's kind of what's underscoring, like if I'm jumping ahead a little bit, that's what's underscoring all of these like little wins that I guess some people are going to be getting is, yes, you're going to have no tax on tips. And next is you're going to have no tax on some of your overtime, but you might lose your Medicaid coverage, or a loved one might lose their Medicaid coverage, or just other bad things that are happening as a result of everything
I was going to say,
going on.
like broader socioeconomic conditions may worsen to a point where it doesn't really matter if you're saving a little bit on your taxes on your tips.
Exactly. So, I mean, like it's a dub a little bit. But in context, it's not. And none of this is worth the trade-off that we're getting. But specifically with no tax on overtime, the half part of time and a half is the only thing that's going to be exempted from the federal income tax. It's not even the full no tax on overtime. And I feel like that it was no tax on overtime and no tax on tips that were like the real big ones that people were like excited about and Republicans wouldn't shut the fuck up about. I'll admit I was a doubter.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a little vindicated in being a doubter considering they're just, you get 1/3 of your overtime income is going to be exempt from just federal income taxes, but not from payroll and Medicare taxes.
Yeah.
So every hour you work above 40 hours, you obviously get paid time and a half. And it's just 1/3 of that that's not federally income taxable.
Yeah, and you still have to, like you said, still have to pay Social Security and Medicare.
And state taxes.
Yeah, well, and of course state taxes, but like federal government can't really control that anyway. But the point is like it's not really no tax on overtime. It's not really no tax on tips because you're still paying a tax associated with those entitlement programs, which is good. Like I don't think that we should just stop taxing people for Social Security and Medicare.
No, I think.
But these two things were the policies that were supposedly meant to prove that Donald Trump was like a champion of the working class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these are supposed to be the things.
And especially like no tax on overtime too, because it's like. You can't campaign on no tax on overtime and then just say only like 1/3 of just overtime is going to be not taxable.
Yeah.
It's something, sure. Like I'm not going to like, but it's crumbs.
And it's like
it's barely anything.
If you really wanted to do something for people that are consistently working overtime, why not just like raise the threshold like Joe Biden did?
Yeah.
Or you could like double the amount that they get on overtime or something like that. Or you could mess with the numbers to a degree where it's like people are getting substantially more from their employer rather than just getting back 1/3 of what they would pay in federal income taxes, not counting Social Security and Medicare.
It would be so much more substantive, like broadly, if, like you said, they just raised the threshold for non-exempt employees or for exempt employees. Like wherever that income, I think it's like what, 55,000 was what Joe Biden raised it to.
Yeah, Joe Biden
If you make more than 55,000, you don't have to be given overtime if you're like a salaried employee. I don't work in HR. I don't know exactly like the full like scope of that, but I know that you make more than 55K, they don't have to give you any overtime.
But that's genuinely one of those policies that's like systemically good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you were raising this threshold and you're shifting the responsibility onto the employer to pay more of those bills rather than just giving back a small percentage of what they would pay in taxes. Like these are the kinds of policies that we should be talking about if we actually want to help the working class. Of course, Trump doesn't really care. It's just a virtue signal.
Yes. And again, it's not no tax on overtime. It's just a little bit less tax on overtime, specifically just 1/3 less of your federal income tax liability for just the pay from overtime hours worked while still being liable for the full amount of every other applicable tax.
Yeah.
Like it kind of they are literally just throwing it in there to say that they did it without it necessarily being anything like super substantive. However, when we look at the federal budget, it ends up being like the most expensive tax cut.
Oh, really?
Like one of these like 4 proposals that I'm going to go through ends up being stupid expensive.
The overtime one specifically?
Yes, ends up being stupid expensive.
I guess a lot of people work overtime, huh? That's probably why they couldn't justify the complete.
It's exactly. I think it would have wiped out all of the savings they'd gained from like other things if they would have completely taken out overtime. Maybe over like a 10-year period or like some shit like that.
Straight up, like impossible to deliver on this promise.
100% impossible to deliver on this progress without, I don't know, killing Social Security.
I'm surprised we didn't hear about that beforehand, like on the campaign trail. Nobody ran the numbers and was like, if he did this, like the entire government would collapse.
That is because like those numbers is super easy to access for people who do this kind of reporting. Like, I'm genuinely surprised nobody reported on this.
We get like monthly labor stats.
I guess maybe it was like politically toxic because it was no tax on overtime something that Kamala Harris also bit.
She stole
Trump?
it. She
stole no tax on overtime and tips.
Yeah.
We were never going to have a principled discussion about this. Just like in general, too, I feel like nobody likes paying taxes. I don't like paying taxes. I frankly did not like paying my taxes in like April when I did them or whenever.
Of course.
But it is politically toxic to have to like engage in this just race to the bottom on constantly cutting taxes. There's a reason it's a cliche to say there are only 2 guaranteed things in life, death and taxes, because like it's true.
Yeah.
You need taxes to run a functioning government. The conversation should be what we spend those tax dollars on, how we allocate those tax dollars, and how we can make them best work for the people so that they see that return on investment, not taxes are taking money from your hardworking pocket.
Nobody does the rhetorical work to make taxes seem like a thing that you do to support the community in which you live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every time we talk about cutting or raising taxes on the rich, like the Democratic Party talks about paying your fair share or whatever, it's always coupled with and cutting taxes on everybody else.
Yes.
And it's like, I get it. You know, I do think there probably are some scenarios where working class people making like a median income are taxed too much. But we do have a country to run. And like you said, if we're using those tax dollars for something good, not like, sending it to Israel or whatever.
Like Social Security.
Then I think it's a lot easier for people to get behind, sort of from like a general will perspective.
And it's like, if you think Social Security is a good program, you have to understand that taxes must also be good because Social Security we don't have without taxes.
And Social Security is like, that's specifically your tax money.
Yes.
That's going to you later in life, directly.
It's kind of like an investment. You just like have to do it. Yeah, no, it's silly. And it's kind of just a race to the bottom that nobody's going to win except for Republicans who explicitly want to dismantle the federal government.
Yep.
As we're seeing.
Because Republicans can always go harder on the I'll cut taxes wave.
Yes.
Because Democrats are always, playing catch up.
It's just a virtue signal. Like, they don't actually, like, mean anything principally. They want everything to fucking burn and destroy, and they literally want you to die, as we'll talk about
That's
later.
the goal.
But one last thing on overtime is it's not, the no tax on 1/3 of your overtime does not apply for workers that are making over $160,000 a year.
Yeah, whatever.
One of the other things Trump promised on the campaign trail was no tax on Social Security. That's just not something that they could possibly deliver on in budget reconciliation. You're not allowed to touch Social Security if you're doing budget reconciliation. That was established like 50 years ago in like some fucking Congress law.
Some hero.
Some hero
50 years ago
had wicked foresight. He portended what would happen in the future. He saw the way the winds were turning and said, I'm gonna step up and do something right now. But instead of doing that, because they can't, they're implementing what's called a like senior deduction, which is basically just a $4,000 add-on for single filers and $8K for married couples over 65, and it's just a add-on to the standard deduction, so that you can take advantage of it if you itemize as well.
Whatever, dog.
It's like just like reducing your tax liability without just getting rid of Social Security tax. That's fine. It's okay, but like, for reasons I'll get to later, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's just not fucking worth it.
And it's like we can do a lot more with the tax dollars that we'd cut from people if we invested them into like broad systemic programs to, keep society moving forward.
Yes.
I just feel like the tax dollars could go further if we use them on things that we need rather than just give a portion of them back to the people who probably don't need it anyway. I don't know. It's a whole complicated. There's literally no political room for this right now. Literally none.
I feel cucked talking. I feel cucked being like, like taxes are like necessary. You got to pay them.
I mean, someone's got to pay for the roads and the libraries.
Someone's got to pay for the roads, the libraries, the Medicare, the Medicaid, the Social Security.
You can make a pro-police argument.
For saying, man. Like, oh my goodness.
A lot of shit that we do with our tax dollars. It's all very important, and yet nobody makes the argument.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. It's not tenable. if you will. But anyway, this last little provision that people are kind of touting as like a win and something that will put more money in your pocket is you will now be able to deduct, if this passes, up to $10,000 in car loan interest if your car was assembled in the U.S. and you make less than $100K individually or $200K jointly. This only applies to passenger vehicles, not commercial ones, but ATVs and RVs are included.
That's very conservative coded. That's
very much for the guy that bought a Duramax that he can't afford and is getting fucked on the interest rate and also loves to go mudding. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I feel like this is for those blue collar guys that buy the $100,000 truck on the goddamn like 30% interest rate and are just drowning in it.
But it's only $10,000 on car loan interest.
Yes.
Not on the car loan itself.
Yes.
Why?
That's a good question.
This is the shit that annoys me with like Republicans and Democrats. All they do is like turn the knobs on these minuscule things that like might benefit some people, but do nothing to like dramatically alter the fact that everyone hates everything all the time.
That's true. And it's also
so
like,
goddamn annoying.
If you put it on car loan interest, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of the same argument that I had when Kamala Harris announced that she wanted to just do down payment assistance, get everybody like $20K or some shit, where it's like, they're just going to raise the prices.
They're just going to raise the price. It doesn't do anything about the fact that it's a goddamn commodity.
Exactly.
And the fact that it's a commodity means some people will never be able to access it.
Yeah.
Because the prices are going to, whatever, dog. It's no rhetorical room.
No rhetorical room for talking about the good that taxes may be providing. Yeah. But whatever.
Yeah,
but
man.
whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Fine.
But with all those four different like policies in consideration. Here's the kicker. All of them are set to expire in 2028.
So malicious. Just actively malicious.
Right,
dog.
there, plainly in front of your face.
Is it like a December 31st, 2028?
It's the end of 2028, yeah. all of these are applicable 2025 to 2028.
As we'll get into in a moment, all of the cuts and like work requirement stuff start January 1st, 2029.
Yes. And that's like what the most insidious part about this entire bill is, other than like cutting Medicaid and killing people.
Like the active harm.
Yeah, that is active harm. What's like under the surface and more subtle about it is the conservatives, the GOP has engineered this bill so that all of the good things are implemented now and all of the bad and substantively, immediately, and obviously harmful things are implemented in 2029 should somebody else become president. Yep. So the buck is actually with the other guy. I don't know.
The buck is with the other guy. And like, it's assuming that a Democrat's going to win.
Yes.
And then everyone's going to be pissed in 2029.
Yeah, a Democrat wins in 2029. Immediately, you have to pay more taxes on your overtime. You have to pay more taxes on your tips. You got to pay more on your car loan. You can't write that off. If you're above 65, you got to pay more in taxes because you lose out on that Saturday deduction. And if you're poor, you just fucking lose your Medicaid coverage. And that's kind of, I think there's like an interesting interplay between you can write off $10,000 of interest for like car loans.
Yeah.
And you're losing Medicaid, because the people who will be helped out most from being able to write up to like $10,000 in interest off of a car loan are going to be people who are like subprime borrowers, people with low credit scores, people who are already in destitute financial situations who get scammed on a car loan. Because if you want to buy like, I don't know, like a $30,000 or $28,000 Honda CRV, you know what I'm saying? And you get like, God forbid, a 35% interest rate.
Jesus Christ.
That is $10,000 in interest.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You are the kind of person that would benefit from that. But if you're in that position, I feel like you're low-key likely to be on Medicaid. So it's like, what are you saving? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that can benefit from these things. There's a lot of tipped workers that will benefit. There's also a lot of tipped workers that are on Medicaid because they're underemployed. Yeah.
Again, like it just feels like there's no like rhetorical room to make arguments in favor of like spending tax dollars in a way that helps everybody. But and maybe I need to flesh this argument out more to articulate it better. But I just feel like a dollar goes further if we're paying into a collective pot that benefits everybody than just giving the dollar back to one person.
Well, it's kind of like how, like for every dollar spent on the CFPB, consumers got back like $20.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that stats
it's
like,
something
I think
like
that's
that,
what
yeah.
it is. But yeah, like there are certain government programs that we fund and that return dividends to the American consumer because they're so good. Trump notably going after the CFPB, dismantling the CFPB. So that's fun.
Well, and notoriously universal healthcare would be cheaper than a privatized system for Americans. Once you compare like the out-of-pocket costs versus like the tax dollars you would pay to maintain it, it would be cheaper on the whole. It's just that, I don't want a black person to get health care with my money is the argument.
While we're talking about universal health care, I think it's important to, really dive into the most important part of the bill, the closest thing we have to any sort of government healthcare program, or at least the second closest thing. And that's all of the fucking cuts that are coming to Medicaid and other things that keep people alive and healthy.
Yeah, we got big old welfare cuts. And I will say, just before we get into that, these tax cuts, as you already allude to, are like offset by programmatic cuts.
Yeah.
The welfare policies that we'll get into. But also, Joe Biden did a tax credit thing for green energy during either the Inflation Reduction Act or one of the budgeting cycles, whatever it was, and they completely got rid of that, even though that is a tax credit and it is a tax cut.
Love that.
But they got rid of it because, green energy is communism or whatever. Anyways, let's get into the welfare programs here. We've got specifically SNAP and Medicaid, and I didn't realize they were going after SNAP.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Supplemental nutrition and food program or something like that. But yeah, I didn't realize that they were going after SNAP, but we got cuts to SNAP and Medicaid. Starting with SNAP, though, the GOP is shifting 5% of the program costs of SNAP onto states and 75% of the administrative costs onto states. That's up from 0% and 50% respectively.
Oh,
so previously states didn't pay anything into the SNAP program. Now they got to pay 5% of the costs associated with, the resources they're using and 75% of the administrative costs. So once again, paperwork and whatnot.
This is why I cannot stress enough how important it is who is running your state now. Mm-hmm. Like, especially when we consider primaries coming up in, I guess, blue states or purple states even.
Yeah.
You need to be voting for people who will commit to protecting their citizens.
Yeah, your comptroller matters.
Your comptroller really matters at this point.
Like, it reminds me of how there was Medicaid expansions under the ACA, and there are still 10 red states that just never accepted it.
Yep.
It directly would have helped their citizens, never accepted it.
What a beautiful thing.
Local and state governments matter big time. So states are taking on these costs, and administrative costs are about to shoot up because they're also expanding work requirements to everybody 18 to 64, and only those caring for a child under 7 are exempt from these work requirements. So I guess when your kid turns 8, they don't need you anymore, is the assumption.
Aren't they also upping it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't they also upping the verification requirement to twice a year now?
Yes.
Yeah.
For this and for Medicaid.
So we're shifting the administrative burden onto states and also the financial administrative burden.
3/4 of the burdens. Yeah.
And then we're also just increasing the burden double.
Dramatically
increasing the workload that's going to go in there. Yep. This is going to make Medicaid run worse for just everyone.
Yeah. And I will note for SNAP that there's already work requirements. And there are income thresholds, income limits that you have to fall below in order to remain eligible for the program. So we create a sort of perverse balancing act where people on SNAP have to make or have to be working enough to be able to qualify with the work requirements that exist right now, but they can't make too much or they lose access to the benefits that they need to afford the cost of food.
Yeah, and there's always going to be that buffer where you hit that threshold where you get kicked off benefits, where you are now there's a functional decrease.
Yeah, you just have less money overall.
You have less power. You can purchase less than you could if you were on benefits. There's no means testing the program to help you get off of it without that. And what pisses me off the most about that is Republicans love to talk about welfare programs where people are incentivized to stay poor, to stay on them so they don't have to work or blah, 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 or whatever. And it's it's designed that way.
Well, yeah, and Republicans talk about it like a moral failing.
Yeah.
People just aren't working hard enough. They just want to leech off the government. And we'll talk about a bunch of myths related to welfare in a little bit. But people are incentivized to not make too much because then they'll lose access to the food benefits that they need maybe to feed their child.
And the problem is still wildly overstated.
Yes.
That is not the case for most of the people that are on these programs, but that is the case for a select few who could maybe go get a better job, but realize that they'd be paying more money and they'd be in a worse position if they did. So they just stay at the shitty job or stay in whatever situation because they do get the benefits now.
Yeah, it needs to be an off-ramp, or there needs to be a sort of government strategy to just raise the wealth of everybody in the nation in some way by, I don't know, a universal healthcare system so people's money doesn't have to go to that, or there's a variety of ways we can come up with to raise the average wealth of a person, probably taxing the rich. But that requires a lot more planning, and it's a lot easier just to hurt poor people and to take food away from them, which is, of course, the plan of this Republican Party.
And then you can give more money to your rich friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that is the goal. Explicitly, they're cutting welfare programs to pay for tax cuts. Explicitly the goal.
Nice.
But let's get on to Medicaid, because Medicaid's the sort of centerpiece of this bill. It is the major sort of cost-saving measure that they're engaging in here to pay for these $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. And it's everything we thought it would be, except for maybe the matching funds cut. We didn't get that, I don't think.
Okay.
But we got literally everything else.
Wonderful.
So we're getting about $900 billion in cuts to Medicaid over 10 years. Again, we mentioned that it doesn't start until January 2029, but Congress does this weird thing where they justify like spending cuts and spending implementation over the course of 10 years, even though no budget ever lasts 10 years. But that's how they measure these things, just so you know. So it's $900 billion over 10 years. But if you push the start date out to 2029, then it's really over 6 years. Whatever. You get the point. You get the point.
Yeah. And this was also coupled. Is this bill coupled with a $4.5 trillion debt ceiling increase too?
Oh, I didn't see anything about the debt ceiling. Can you put debt ceiling through budget reconciliation? I can't remember. We've done this so many times.
It's hell every single time too. I'm saying. I know I've seen people talk about how they're going to have to raise the debt ceiling. I don't know if it's directly connected to this though.
Yeah, they will at some point, but I don't see people like Chip Roy going for that.
Yeah, but especially if, like you said, like they do that stupid budgetary trick where everything's over 10 years rather than just starting from, I don't know, the new fucking budget, where it's like we're going to be spending on Medicaid and spending on these tax cuts and doing all of this. That's just going to increase our deficit spending.
Yeah.
Not me being like a fucking budget nerd, but
it just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Especially for what they want.
Yeah. So now getting into these Medicaid cuts, these cuts are being accomplished through brand new work requirements. The requirement is to verify 80 hours of work per week for able-bodied adults
per month.
Per month. I'm sorry. Per week. I apologize. 80 hours per month for able-bodied adults without dependents, and check your eligibility with the program twice per year, up from once per year last time.
Oddly enough, why? Like, why up it to twice per year? That's so annoying.
Yeah, it is. I don't see why. I don't think there's any real explanation other than to drown people in paperwork, which I think is the
no, somebody is on benefits for an extra couple months. Wow.
And one thing that a lot of people don't talk about with these welfare programs, because it's so wrapped up in this idea that a third of the country is just super lazy and doesn't want to do anything. People come in and out of welfare programs.
Yes.
Like a lot of people on SNAP will be on there for like 6 months and then not be on SNAP anymore because they get a job and they don't need it anymore. Maybe they'll come back onto it, right? Cycles of poverty. Same with Medicaid. Not everybody uses it all the time. People come in and out of it. These sort of paperwork obstacles just make it more likely to people make it more likely for people to not get the benefits they need. And that is the intent.
Yeah.
That is the intent. As I said, doesn't start till January 2029. I'm guessing the reason for that with Medicaid is, one, so they can shift it onto a Democrat, they're assuming, and also so they can avoid any material backlash, because there will be political backlash because they're doing it.
Of course.
But the material economic effects won't be felt for a couple of years. Yeah. People might anticipate it coming, but it's not going to go into effect. People won't lose healthcare immediately.
It's almost like everything they're saying Joe Biden did with egg prices.
Yes.
Every accusation is a confession.
Nevertheless, I have a quote from the AP here. Quote, an estimate from the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said the proposal would reduce the number of people with healthcare by at least 7.6 million from the Medicaid changes, and possibly more with other changes to the Affordable Care Act.
7.6 million people being knocked off healthcare is insane.
Just for fun.
Just for fun, just for no goddamn reason at all. Like, that's, you're gonna kill people. You're gonna saddle people with ridiculous medical debt. And was it the CFPB that implemented the rule that medical debt can't be reported on your credit report anymore?
Yes.
Did that go away with all the dismantling of the CFPB Trump is trying to do? Either way, if it hasn't gone away, it's very much likely to go away because they don't like that. You know what I mean?
CFPB is just a fundamentally good
coded institution, really. And they're trying to get rid of it. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to get rid of all the rules that they implemented as well. So we're looking at a situation where the most vulnerable people among us, the poorest, the disabled among us, are going to get kicked off of their health insurance coverage, have to pay out the wazoo whenever they do go to the hospital, blah, blah, blah. They won't be able to pay that debt back because they're poor, and that's why they're on Medicaid in the first place, or they're between jobs, that's why they're on Medicaid in the first place. And then that medical debt will be possibly, if they repeal the rule, slapped on their credit report, and then they're never going to be able to get a loan with a good interest rate again. And it's just going to continue this like spiral of never being able to get out of poverty. That's why the CFPB implements rules like that to help people, because it makes no goddamn sense to have your citizens walking around saddled with all this goddamn debt all the time.
And then your wages are going to be garnished to pay for that medical debt.
And your student loans.
So you're going to have less money in your pocket. You're going to show up to the grocery store to pay for groceries because you don't have SNAP anymore. And then you're going to get hit with an overdraft fee from your bank account, and the CFPB PPP doesn't limit those anymore. Every step of this process, the Republican Party's trying to fuck you.
It's trying to literally trap you in poverty. Yes. And it's like poverty is a social ill. Yeah. Not only is it like a government policy failure, it is a social ill. You do not want people walking around your country, your society impoverished. It just makes everything else worse. Yep. And that's not because poor people are inherently bad, but it's because poverty is a bad thing that negatively affects people and the people around the people who are impoverished, because poverty will drive you to do desperate things. What's that fuck-ass Marcus Aurelius quote? Poverty is the mother of all crime?
Yes.
Yeah, it's true.
Like 3,000 years ago.
3,000 years ago, we figured it out, and we can't act on it. And it's the same thing for sickness. Sickness is also a social ill. We do not want people sick walking around society. If 7.6 million people are kicked off of Medicaid, that's going to be at least a significant portion of them who just will not go to the doctor when they need to. The easiest way to prevent, exuberant medical charges is to do preventative care. That's why when you actually have an insurance plan through your fucking employer, because that's the only way to get it without paying out the wazoo, they mentioned preventative care will be charged at a lesser rate than injury care or some shit like that. At least that's part of how my plan was worked back when I was working at the lab, right? Yeah. Preventative care, especially dental care, was cheaper than doing anything else because they want to stop the problem at its root. Yeah. If people are not going to the doctor until they absolutely have to, everything is going to get more expensive. More people are going to be hurt all the time. And it's just bad.
Well, yeah, it's even from a capitalist perspective, if we're talking about the profit motive, healthy workers are good workers.
Yeah.
Right? We make an argument for something like universal healthcare because I think it's morally good. I think people deserve to have access to healthcare, especially in the richest country in the history of the world. But from an economic perspective, having healthy citizens that aren't going into debt because of the medicine that they need access to is good economic policy.
It's pretty cool, actually. It's really cool.
And to that point, some states have tried implementing work requirements for Medicaid before, and it was a total fucking disaster.
Nice.
In 2018, Arkansas imposed work requirements on Medicaid recipients under this assumption that thousands of people are just leeching off the program when they could actually be working. But from the Urban Institute, quote, the requirement led to the disenrollment of more than 18,000 adults over 4 months before a 2019 federal court ruling halted further implementation. Using data from telephone surveys of adults with low incomes in Arkansas and 3 comparison states in the South, Harvard University researchers found the work requirements were associated with an increase in uninsurance among 30 to 49-year-olds in Arkansas between late 2016 and late 2018, but they found no evidence of a positive effect on employment.
They just straight up don't do the thing that they're telling you they want it to do.
Yeah.
It straight up does not work.
Work requirements do not get people off of welfare programs because people on welfare programs are already working.
They also just push you into shitty jobs if you're not working because you need to be working a job to get your benefits, or you need to be constantly proving that you're applying to jobs in order to get these benefits.
Well, yeah, and the assumption that they're just not working is silly because it's Medicaid doesn't cover all of life's necessities. It covers basic physical health care.
That's just not going to cover your goddamn car loan.
No. And it's this assumption that we need work requirements because everybody is just lazy and they would sit at home if they had their basic needs met is just fundamentally untrue. People get on welfare programs not because they're lazy, but because of broader socioeconomic conditions that demand that they need a hand from the government or some other entity. And that's not a bad thing. And when we're talking Medicaid, that's millions of people. And when we're talking our healthcare industry, it makes sense that some people need help because our healthcare industry is full of fucking vampires.
And it's also when it comes to something like Medicaid, which is healthcare, health insurance, it is a necessity, yes, but it's not a necessity like food, shelter, clothing is a necessity. It's not one of those things where oh, I got those, I can just chill in my house all day. Health insurance is only something that you notice when you need it. Mm-hmm. Nobody is thinking, oh, I got health insurance? Shit, I don't have to do anything else.
Exactly. Exactly. And when people talk about healthcare, they'll always say something like, well, I don't want to pay for somebody else's healthcare.
Yeah.
There is no system that any country on the planet could create where you aren't paying for somebody else's healthcare. Mm-hmm. When you pay a premium, you are paying for other people to use health insurance. That's what a premium is. That you're paying into a collective pool of resources so that you can pull from it if you ever need it at some point. If we had a universal healthcare system, we would take the profit motive out of it entirely, and your tax dollars would just be a premium, and you would save money on the whole.
But I'm also paying the shareholders.
Yes, but you're also paying
I'm
the
also
shareholders.
paying the shareholders, and
Yeah.
I like that.
You're paying the shareholders.
I could be one of them one day.
You're paying for marketing. You're paying for advertising. You're paying for just like a ton of shit that a healthcare system simply doesn't need.
You're paying
In
for
fact,
just administrative bloat.
the U.S. doesn't even have a goddamn healthcare system. It's just like a collection of different private actors trying to get you for all you got.
Yes.
And they do.
It's just the government negotiating with private companies and the government going and reimbursing providers.
Well, and the government can't even negotiate on every drug.
That only 10, right?
Only
Yeah.
a certain set of drugs under the Medicare program, which is only for people that are 65 and older or with disabilities. Like it's a complete fucking joke, U.S. healthcare.
It's like if just having healthcare provided to you would make everybody fucking lazy. Why isn't everyone in every other, I don't know, civilized country
exactly
lazy and just sitting at home all day? Why aren't people in the UK with their goddamn NHS just sitting at home all day and not working? Because they got other shit they want to do. Even if all my basic needs were met, I'd get out there and work because I want to buy dumb shit.
Yeah, like I'm not sitting here telling you that the government should be making flat screen TVs.
Yes.
I'm sitting here telling you that maybe we should devise a common plan to provide everyone with healthcare.
Yeah.
Like just the most basic shit. You know what I mean? Just the most basic shit. Yeah, people in other countries don't just suddenly stop working once they get access to their basic needs.
Man.
It's so dumb.
It's all
so dumb.
literally right there in front of us. I don't understand why people don't just look.
Yeah. In addition to this budget, moving on from Medicaid, actually, no, still for some Medicaid. There's a couple more Medicaid things here. There's a 10% reduction in Medicaid funding to states that allow undocumented immigrants to enroll.
Nice.
We could not get by without hurting a brown person in this bill. It does not allow Medicaid to be used at Planned Parenthood. As far as I can tell, it's not just abortions because federal funding already can't go to abortions. Thank you, Hyde Amendment. But it's a complete ban on Medicaid dollars going to Planned Parenthood, the organization.
It's all under the guise that the only thing that Planned Parenthood does is abortions rather than Planning Parenthood.
It's in the name.
It's right there. It's in front of your
literally
face.
the name. And lastly, Medicaid dollars in this bill cannot be used on gender affirming care because, of course.
Yeah, that was a big problem.
Yeah.
That was a big problem. I me personally, I was thinking about quitting my job just so
I was just draining Medicare.
Yeah, many
to pay for
many
gender
trans
affirming
people just quit their jobs so they can get government HRT. It's true.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Republicans are having a hard time actually selling these policies.
I wonder why.
We talked a few weeks ago, or maybe just last week, about Republicans having a hard time justifying these cuts to their constituencies. But the House Republicans' Twitter was doing some rhetorical work these past few days, and I got two tweets from them. The first one is, House Republicans believe in every American's potential to thrive by embracing the power of work.
Work will set you free, brother. Come on.
Exactly.
What the fuck is this?
How else can you read that? How else? There's no other interpretation.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
And then, quote, we need to get Americans off the sidelines.
What the fuck does that even mean?
They hate you, dog. Like, the Republican Party hates you.
What? We need to get Americans off. Americans are just sitting on the fucking sidelines, not putting in any of the goddamn work to get health care.
Yeah. People on Medicaid already work. People on SNAP already work. It's not like people get their benefits and then just do nothing else. They have other shit to pay for.
And like, once again, it's so insane to me. Like, they are getting away with this because there's a lot of people that saw no tax on overtime and think, oh shit, I'm not getting no tax on overtime. When you're not even getting no tax on overtime, it's just a little bit less. Just a little bit less no tax on overtime. Oh my God.
Yeah. It is without exaggeration. The Republican Party is cutting essential welfare programs, telling you that you don't work hard enough. Also, they can pay for tax cuts for the rich.
Yeah, get your ass up the couch, buddy.
Yeah.
Time to go to work.
Outside of welfare policies, though, we are getting $46 billion for the border wall. We're getting $69 billion for hiring thousands of new Border Patrol and Customs officers. We're getting 10,000 new ICE agents, and we're getting funding for removing 1 million immigrants each year.
10,000 new SS officers. Just fucking
10,000 new brown shirts, baby.
10,000 new plainclothes SS officers. 10,000 new secret police running through American streets. What the fuck is going on?
Fundamentally evil party, dog. Just fundamentally evil. One thing that's flown under the radar in these budget negotiations is the moratorium on regulating AI.
What the fuck that got to do?
In this budget, there's a moratorium that says that bars states from regulating AI in any way for 10 years.
What the fuck does that have to do with the budget? Where's the parliamentarian?
This is just a Silicon Valley handout, I guess.
Like, absolutely. If this is just blatantly just corrupt, also stupid.
Yeah.
Why would you put a moratorium on regulating anything? That's dumb.
It's really fucking dumb.
We got a moratorium. We got a moratorium on putting in fucking workplace safety requirements. These are really burdensome, and we need to unleash American manufacturing and construction. What the fuck is it? Like, that's the dumbest shit I think I've ever heard.
Yep. Again, the Republican Party here just wants to extend Trump's tax cuts. They're going to pay for it by cutting essential welfare programs. And just to reiterate on the welfare stuff, the mountain of paperwork involved in work requirements on an administrative level is explicitly a cut, because Republicans here are banking on the sort of labyrinth of paperwork to make people confused and force them off of these programs.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what happened in Arkansas in 2018, and that's what they want to happen nationwide.
It's same thing. It's the same concept as when Doge closed down that Social Security office a couple months ago. It's like when you close down or limit somebody's access to a program, less people are going to access that program because it's harder. The more barriers you put in front of somebody, the less people will choose to go over those barriers. Less people getting the benefits they need in instances like this.
Not to even mention how many millions of dollars it will take to implement work requirements in every state in the country.
Yep. You're just draining state budgets.
That is it explicitly, yeah. It's draining state budgets. And that is, of course, a cut as well, because it's spending a lot of money.
And like explicitly just draining blue state budgets more, especially the blue states that expanded Medicaid.
Yeah.
The motherfuckers that never got it never wanted to help their citizens just get off on this one.
I do wonder what this does to red states, though, because red states, I believe, use Medicaid more per capita than blue states do. And of course, if their population's smaller, they have less tax money to work with. So I wonder what happens here. Not that they care about their populations.
Of course not. Yeah.
But I do. I think Louisiana, is Mike Johnson's state, is one of like the highest users of Medicaid funding.
I used to know the stat. I wish I still knew the stat, but it's something crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty high up there. And that's not like a moral thing that I'm trying to bring up, but it's just like you're hurting your own people, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, no, these representatives just do not represent us, because people, they tell you no tax on overtime, and then everybody jumps on that. I can't stand the way that just taxes control the zeitgeist, man.
American politics, baby. So to end off the budget talk, it's not clear if the GOP has the votes to make this happen. We'll have to wait and see. It's budget reconciliation, so they only need 50 votes in the Senate.
Yeah.
Strict majority in the House, which, of course, they have majorities in both chambers here. So they could pass it without any Democrats, but it's unclear if they can hold their coalition together enough to get this over.
And what is it? Hawley said some shit like he's against
Josh
this?
Hawley. Well, he said that he is against the Medicaid cuts, which, again, is like the centerpiece here.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that means he's not going to vote for it. He might just rhetorically say,
often, isn't it?
He might just be like, I'm not for this, but I like the SS officers that we're hiring, so I'm going to vote for it. He might be able to find some excuse to rationalize it. But
10,000 ICE agents are needed right now. Of course, there's a lot of protests going around on college campuses.
We got to put them down.
There's a lot of student visa holders that we need to get out of here that are violent protesters.
They're violently writing op-eds.
Of course, in the school newspaper. These are widely circulated things that are going on.
Anyways.
It's fucked up. And this is all to just pay for millionaires to get more money.
That's simply.
And that's explicitly it. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities published some graphs, I think the other day after this plan got released, saying that people making over $1 million are going to end up saving about $90,000 as a result of these things. And people in the bottom 20% will gain about $90.
$90?
Yeah.
$90 total. 90.
90. This analysis is from like Congressional Budget Office data, but they are including changes to the estate tax in their calculation on how much like rich people will reap from this.
Okay.
So, which is valid.
Yeah.
Like, of course, like you got to consider the ways that these people dodge taxes and how they're going to be allowed to dodge taxes even more than us. But yeah, so you think about all the $90 you're going to be saving.
Yeah, 90 bucks. Like on the year?
I think so. I'm pretty sure it's on the year.
That's one grocery trip in Trump's America.
Yeah.
Not even.
This annual percent and dollar change in after-tax income for 2027 tax year. $90,000 for people who make $1 million. The top or the middle 60 to 80% are going to save like $2,700, which I'm not going to say isn't substantial, but
There's also some shit in there about state and local tax deductions, SALT deductions, which like explicitly benefit higher income people.
Love that.
And I think they were expanding that as well. But like all of this is like nitty gritty tax stuff. You know what Trump is trying to do. It's the same thing. He's trying to extend the same shit that he did in the beginning.
And also, when I bring up these numbers, you're going to see a lot of different analyses come out over like the next week as more people dive into the bills that will have varying numbers on how much each income bracket will save.
Right.
But I'll put my money on it. The prevailing narrative is rich people save more, poor people save less, probably both by percentages and by actual dollar amounts. And if it's not by percentages, we have to consider tax burden on people who make $1 million goddamn dollars. You make $1 million, you don't need that extra 90. I'll say it right now.
And we also have to consider like if those savings in tax dollars will just be completely offset by the amount you now have to pay on your own because you can't get Medicaid anymore.
Precisely, especially if you're in that bottom 20%.
Because you only clocked, I don't know, 75 hours a month instead of 80.
Oh, yeah,
and now
you're
you don't
fucked,
have
buddy.
access to the program anymore.
That's tough.
Yeah. So that wraps it up on the budget.
This episode of Head in the Office is brought to you by Ground News.
Media literacy is a key component of our podcast here, but spotting the biases in news and reporting, especially in our nonstop media landscape, can be hard. Thankfully, the folks over at Ground News are working to make this a lot easier.
Ground News is an app and a website that collects news from all around the world and puts it in one place so you can compare coverage, uncover political biases, and learn who is funding each publication.
Ground News has a lot of cool features, such as the bias distribution, which shows you the political leanings of the sources reporting on each story, and the blind spot tab, which highlights stories that are being missed by either the left or the right. Ground News will even tell you your own news bias based on the articles you've read on their site.
If you're interested in Ground News, you can go to check.ground.news/headintheoffice for 40% off. The link is also in the description. We would suggest taking a look at their Vantage plan to unlock all the fancy features we referenced, and subscribing to Ground News also helps out the show, which we know you all want to do.
Special thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this podcast, and back to the episode.
That does wrap it up on the budget. Speaking of people who might not have access to things anymore.
We gotta talk about the Hogg.
Hogg wild, baby. It's Hogg watch.
We gotta talk about the DNC because David Hogg, of course, survivor of the Florida Parkland school shooting and ongoing political activist, someone who's been around for a while, and now DNC vice chair, has dared to question Democratic Party leadership.
And they did not like that. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Ken Martin did that op-ed talking about like neutrality in primaries because that's David Hogg's whole initiative is just raising $20 million to primary, quote unquote, do nothing Democrats. Totally valid cause.
Totally valid cause. So as you said, David Hogg's been calling for primary challenges to basically just old, ineffective members of the Democratic Party in safe blue seats. He explicitly said he will not be going after people in swing districts because, you know, there's a chance that they could end up losing the general election and then the whole thing is has gone south. So he specifically wants to go after people in safe seats. He wants to fund this through outside organizations, as we talked about. So it's not like DNC money going to like selectively going to certain people.
It's not even a DNC operation. It just so happens to be done, helped by a guy who's the vice chair of the DNC.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, everybody within the party infrastructure didn't like this. As you said, including DNC chair Ken Martin. And about a week ago, the Credentials Committee within the DNC voted to void the internal party election in which David Hogg won his position on procedural grounds.
It's so lame. So fucking
very
lame.
Democrat coded.
Very Democrat coded. Very institutionalist. Very these sacred halls.
Yep. The argument seems to be that the DNC has gender parity rules for leadership, and the election was held in such a way to make it less likely for the woman candidates to win. I don't know exactly what this procedure is. I tried to find it. I don't know exactly like where the fucking bylaws are or whatever. And I don't know exactly how David Hogg was like advantaged in this process.
Yeah.
But that's the claim.
That's the claim. I do think it's interesting because there was a complaint by I think 3 women who said that they were like unfairly disadvantaged by how I guess things happened. That had been in there since the election.
Oh yeah.
But they just now want to act on that complaint, and they just now want to take it seriously when David Hogg pisses them off.
Yeah, I got a quote right here from the complaint that was filed in February, of course, before David Hogg went hog wild. And it said, quote, it's from the NYT, quote, it was a result of a complaint from Kaylin Free, one of the losing candidates in the vice chair race. Ms. Free said the party had wrongly combined 2 separate questions into a single vote, putting at a disadvantage the female candidates because of the party's gender parity rules. Again, is there truth behind these claims? I don't know. They haven't really like talked about exactly what the gender parity rules require. So it's unclear. But if this does pass, again, it was just one committee that passed the resolution. If the entire party votes on it and then the resolution passes, it'll essentially call for a new vice chair election. And I'm guessing at that point, David Hogg is not going to win.
Does voiding the internal party election already not call for a re-election? Like,
so the credentials committee voted for it, but it has to be voted on by the entire
the broader
DNC. Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of going through a process here.
It's just eye opening that they waited to take the complaint seriously until David Hogg pissed him off, and they're like, oh my god, actually we were so unfair to you guys. Oh my goodness, we got to redo this.
It does feel bad. But like, David Hogg is not a progressive.
No.
He just proposed one simple idea, which is that when we have fascists tearing apart the country, we should maybe have competent and effective people in positions of power in Congress through our party.
Yeah.
And for the crime of doing that, he might lose his seat. And again, I know that the complaint for the party election is on the lines of the gender parity rules, and there might be some like legitimacy there, but I don't think you can disentangle the fact that David Hogg might lose his position from the fact that he's been pretty openly anti old Democrats doing nothing.
Yeah, valid.
Yeah.
Entirely valid position to have, by the way.
And like it was like light pushback, because the other day he was praising Hakeem Jeffries.
Oh my god, I saw that interview.
Yeah,
no, that pissed me off. He's like, but like, maybe I hope he was doing it as like a political strategy thing, because it's like Hakeem Jeffries has not done shit.
Hakeem Jeffries hasn't done anything. He's just going around. Like, David Hogg is, again, lightly pushing back, not in a progressive way. He's not like an AOC. He's not a socialist. He's not anything like that. He's just saying maybe the elected representatives from our party should do something.
Is he I don't even think he's trying to get progressives elected in these primaries.
No,
he's just trying to get young people.
Younger people.
Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries is a relatively young guy compared to all the other dinosaurs. Like, we could just have more of that. Like,
yeah. And he's focused on like house races. Like, he's saying maybe we should give voters somebody else to vote for. And for doing that, he might lose his position
especially
in the DNC.
in like uncontested primaries. That's just democracy.
It's just like, it's so discouraging to see the party infrastructure so quickly turn against one dude who's not even doing anything that crazy, and then look so fucking weak compared to what Republicans are doing right now.
Like, do they not see the goddamn Bernie tour?
Yeah. It really feels like the Democratic Party is just entirely committed to this idea of seniority. Like, once you win a seat, you are entitled to getting more and more power until the day that you die.
Yeah.
I don't know how the Democratic Party got this way, but it's going to doom us all.
I don't know. I don't even think I could begin to like try and diagnose it just like on a goddamn segment on the show. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, it's got to have something to do with their, like, I don't know, reverie for the goddamn resolute desk and for these sacred halls style politics. But it's toxic and it's killing us.
It's really bad.
It's killing people who are going to lose Medicaid.
Yeah. So that's the Democratic Party. Shout out to the Hogg.
Yeah, a little inside baseball.
Yeah, hope you don't lose your position, but if you do, then fucking whatever.
It'd be crazy if he got reelected again.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice?
We'll see what happens there. We'll see.
We'll see what happens. Watch what happens next, folks.
Right.
Next story we got to talk about is, once again, we unfortunately have Alien Enemies Act of 1798 news. And this time, still bad.
Very bad.
Surprising nobody whenever we talk about this godforsaken bill. So for the first time this week, first time in Alien Enemies Act, not a great pairing. Not a great pairing. You know what I'm saying? I'll just start it off like that. For the first time this week, a federal judge out of Pennsylvania was the first to give the Trump administration the okay to deport Venezuelans who are labeled as gang members.
Oh, boy.
The judge herself, a Trump appointee, said the act can be used to remove Venezuelan citizens who are at least 14 years old, who are in the U.S. without legal immigration status, and who are members of Tren de Aragua.
See, that seems to be the issue right there, is their ability to prove it.
I know what you're thinking. I know exactly what everybody thought when they heard that, and it's how do they know they're gang members? It's just, I guess, instead of sweeping it the same way they've always known they were gang members, whether or not they're brown, I think the only real restriction that this imposes is that they just have to be Venezuelan brown. They have to be brown and Venezuelan, and I guess over 14 to be deported.
Yeah.
It's kind of like military age man type shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it is just military age man type shit. But it's like the way that the Trump administration seemingly for the last several months has proved someone's a member of Tren de Aragua, quote unquote, is by looking at their tattoos.
Yeah.
Even though Tren de Aragua does not have like a tattoo requirement as a part of being a gang member.
Yes. And wasn't Kilmar Brego Garcia deported with the Alien Enemies Act? Wasn't he like on the...
Yeah, he was sent to CCOT, yeah.
Yeah, with MS-13 though.
Yeah, MS-13. Different organizations, to be clear.
Yeah, originated from different places, really.
Not that I can expect like an American to hold these ideas in their minds, but yeah.
Exactly, but he's got the Times New Roman
They
tattoo.
are not the same.
No, they're not the same. The judge did say that the administration isn't giving enough notice to deportees, so she ordered that any deportee be given 21 days notice in English and Spanish, and a, quote, opportunity to be heard about any objections they may have. I'm not a law guy, but I feel like the language here is intentionally vague to allow the administration to get away without proving in court whether or not a would-be deportee is a member of TDA. They just have to, like, hear him out.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like the only thing that people accused of being a member of TDA get are the ability to say, like, hey, that's not true.
Yeah.
But the Trump administration doesn't have to prove that their claims are true.
Exactly. And I think there's like less of a legal standard for some of these things in immigration court too.
And that's always been the case. Like it's always been pretty easy to deport people without like having like you haven't always had to prove it in front of like a judge or like a jury of peers or whatever. Like immigration hearings can be a pretty expedited process, and it's one way that like immigration policy in the US has been violent for quite a while. But this is extraordinary. Yeah. Like this is unique in the face of an immigration system that's never been good to immigrants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like double bad squared, if you will. And it's like, again, like, please, like genuinely someone correct me if I'm wrong, but if she actually cared about only deporting like the quote unquote right people, already insane to say in the first place, would it not be ordered that their TDA association be proven in court? Like, would it not be explicitly ordered that it be proven in court and they be given, like, opportunities to challenge things in court? When the Supreme Court blocked the deportations in North Texas, they explicitly said that they need to be able to just file, like, a habeas appeal or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And, like, when other judges have done this, they've also explicitly written it in their wording that you have to let them appeal this specific thing going on. I don't have access to, like, the actual ruling that she said, her actual language surrounding it. Well, what I read was her actual language, but none of the articles have mentioned that she specified anything.
Right.
So I'm not gonna hold water for her. I'm not gonna give her that.
Right. Yeah.
It's fucked up, and especially when she's okaying the deportation.
Right.
It's a fucked up situation getting more fucked up. So I'm not going to give her any of the benefits of the doubt.
Yeah, why would you not put in the ruling like you need to prove they're a member of TDA, even if it's just to like a single judge, right? Like because I think oftentimes in immigration like process, there's not like a jury or anything like that, but you got to prove to a judge that this person is who you say they are.
Yeah.
Why is that not a requirement?
Yeah, exactly. That should be explicitly written in writing that like you got to let these people have their day in court if they want it with their 21 days notice.
And it's on the government to prove the claims that they're making, right? The burden of proof is on them, or at least it should be. That seems moral and just.
And it's like, well, I don't know that necessarily. What I do know is that like even before we get to that question, how they're going to prove it, whether or not the judge should explicitly put it in her language that they need to let them have a specific kind of appeal, we still have to contend with the idea that this is standing on the assumption that what's happening constitutes an invasion. And all the stuff that I was reading about this, in no way was she rebuking that there's an invasion of TDA members from Venezuela. In fact, to allow the Alien Enemies Act deportations to continue would imply that you do believe that it stands on the correct legal, that what the Trump administration is defining as an invasion is correct.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's insane. That is quite the escalation.
Yeah, and unequivocally, there is no evidence that a quote-unquote invasion is happening.
Yes, like you need that. That is like the central like word and phrasing that you need to prove before you can even invoke the act in the first place. And what's going on here is just total and utter bullshit. There's not a goddamn invasion. Tren de Aragua has not taken over the Venezuelan government. I feel like I got to say it every week.
Yeah, State Department documents don't even show that the TDA has taken over Venezuela. Yeah. There's just no evidence
and
of
that they're exporting people here to do fent, to sell fent to children on Halloween. You know what I'm saying? And other judges have called this out in their rulings and have not been evil. Specifically, like Trump appointees. We have Judge Stephanie Gallagher, Trump appointee, on April 23rd. Quote, defendants have provided no evidence, defendants being like Trump administration, blah, 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 have provided no evidence or even any specific allegations as to how plaintiff or any other class member poses a threat to public safety under the Alien Enemies Act.
Cook.
Judge Karen Henderson, a Reagan and George W. Bush appointee.
GWB
said, quote, Quoting a dictionary over 200 years post-enactment, the government claims that the term invasion, as used in the AEA, encompasses the arrival somewhere of people or things who are not wanted there. The text and its original meaning say otherwise. The theme that rings true is that an invasion is a military affair, not one of migration.
Yeah.
Reagan and Bush appointee.
Fundamentally different things.
Yes, this next one, another Trump appointee, Judge Fernando Rodriguez, quote, the question that this lawsuit presents is whether the president can utilize a specific statute, the AEA, to detain and remove Venezuelan aliens who are members of TDA. As to that question, the historical record renders clear that the president's invocation of the AEA through the proclamation exceeds the scope of the statute and is contrary to the plain ordinary meaning of the statute's terms. As a result, the court concludes that as a matter of law, the executive branch cannot rely on the AEA based on the proclamation to detain the named petitioners and certified class or to remove them from the country.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't people who have been ideologically captured, as Stephen Miller says. These Reagan and George W. Bush and 2 Trump appointees are not waging lawfare on the Trump administration.
Right.
Especially because this language isn't even particularly scathing in some instances. It's just based on the plain and ordinary language, based on how we interpret these things. You just can't do this.
And I feel like there's, first of all, the people in the law, fucking judges, are saying here that there's not an invasion happening and you can't use the law in the way that he's using it. I don't hear any Democrats making that argument.
Wait a second.
Because for years, Trump and Republicans have been talking about how there's an invasion at the southern border. I mean, we talked about when Greg Abbott invoked the invasion clause of his state constitution.
They just let him get away with it.
They totally just let him get away with it because they, for some reason, I don't know if it's for political expediency or otherwise, believe that there's a sort of invasion or a problem at the border related to people migrating into the United States, when it's just not true. It's people coming to the United States seeking a better life, and to the extent that cartels exist or there's human trafficking or whatever it may be, it's a result of how harsh our immigration system is.
Yes.
People have to try to utilize other ways to get into the United States. If you made it easier, they wouldn't have to pay cartels to traffic them over.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't be an issue. And that's completely besides the point that there's no military invading the southern border. It's just not happening. It's not true.
It's completely farcical.
Yeah.
It's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, and those are Republican appointees. Mm-hmm. Those are the guys that they would rely on, and they're saying no. Funny that this Pennsylvania judge did. She was also a Trump appointee. One last statement from her, after she finishes with the ruling, she says this, quote, having done its job, the court now leaves it to the political branches of the government and ultimately to the people who elect those individuals to decide whether the laws and those executing them continue to reflect their will. Is this not just Trump has a mandate?
Yeah.
Sure. We recognize that something horrible is happening right now, that people's due process rights, even as immigrants, are being violated. You got to wait 1.5 years to battle it out of the ballot box.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, cooler heads will prevail at the ballot box.
Hitler was appointed to chancellor.
He has a mandate from the people.
He was appointed to chancellor. He has a mandate.
Precisely. That's the corniest fucking shit, dude. Yeah. That is so stupid.
It's so nihilistic.
Nerdy.
It's so nihilistic. Nothing actually matters. It's just this procedure I can defer to so I don't have to make any, brave stances.
Yes.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, so that's the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 this week for you.
Yeah,
that's a story.
Yeah, it's genuinely hard to keep up with a lot of this immigration stuff.
Oh, it really is, because I'm trying to keep up with. I was trying to go back and look at other rulings to find out language that other judges use, and I was trying to figure out what the SCOTUS decision was, and then I was getting confused about the SCOTUS decision, and I think it got repealed. I don't even fucking know anymore, dude. There's so much going on in the courts, and I'm not a lawyer.
It will end up at the Supreme Court again, because SCOTUS basically kicked the can when they made that first ruling. And they also kicked the can and they said, yeah, you got to facilitate the return of Kilmar Borrego Garcia, and they didn't, say anything about having to effectuate it. Yeah, exactly. So this stuff will get back to the Supreme Court eventually. They will eventually have to make a decision, and I guess we'll see what happens then. But it does seem like a sort of collision between Trump and the judicial branch is forthcoming on its
absolutely.
way. Yeah,
and it may be here right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's he's certainly in violation of court orders at the moment.
Oh yeah,
but it's just it feels like the dam hasn't broken yet. Oh boy. Anyways, we got anything else for this beautiful Thursday?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I think that ends out this Thursday. for our Thursday thought leaders.
Yes, we're coming together. We're thinking. We're having a Socratic seminar. You know what I mean? It's like you're all sitting around here and you're chiming in.
Yeah, it's another day of rough news. If you use Medicaid, which 1 in 5 Americans do, I'm hoping you don't lose it. I'm hoping the paperwork requirements that are likely going to be put on you aren't like fucking labyrinthian.
Yep, I'm hoping you can get that shit in lickety and they like instantly approve it and you're good.
I gotta wonder like what the denial rate on that paperwork will be in red states.
Oh, it's gonna have to be insane.
That's just gonna be crazy. It's gonna be like 50%.
There's gonna be no oversight as well, because all the workers who are doing any oversight are gonna have to move to do like administration. It's gonna be so much easier to scam Medicaid.
Man,
I feel.
I'm starting to think federalism is a scam.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
What is up with that?
Someone break it down in the comments.
Hell
federalism. Yeah. Why?
Why?
Anyways, that brings us to the end of this beautiful Thursday episode. I appreciate you all for listening, of course. I hope you enjoyed it. And before we get out of here,
we got to give a special thanks to the people that I personally enjoy having around as my friends.
I love them.
You know what I'm saying? A special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Jory, Rich Taro, Tari, Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Blueberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Big Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsfer, Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benny Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Ted Cruz's boy toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, the Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Contact, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, the Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gon, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Caleb Lowe, Anna Valitic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes,
August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Hines, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Walls 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Particulon, Memfrez, Lauren, Uncrestmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Ron Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stack Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kasaya, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Crab, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fida Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Anaya, Cryo Bongi, Sergeant Pookie, Connor Nix, Jordan T, Hoodie, Kim Kitcharagi, Rosa Grimm, Kristen, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Daniel Stock, Noah Sahas, Majo What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6 Inch Heels, Luke Wechter, Henry Kraggles, Tristan Ringsmith, Yaya, Hannah Attig, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon.
Couldn't do it without you, truly. We would not be here in Studio 2.0.
That's right. Studio 2.0 with the gray carpet.
Hell yeah.
Got the gray carpet back,
The Hidden
folks.
Enlightenment never would have come around.
That's right. Thanks for listening, and see you on Monday.
Have a great weekend.